Welcome back to Curious Comedy, a podcast made to inform and entertain, to enjoy and wreck your brain. Oh, and our name? I'm Tom.
I'm Jala.
And without further ado, let's get into it. What do you have for us today?
Thanks, Tom. I must say that I almost forgot our names, but that is maybe due to the fact that we haven't uploaded for a couple of weeks.
Uh-huh.
So maybe you could argue that we should perform this episode to make sure that our audience is engaged.
Mm-hmm.
So we brought a great topic, a topic that maybe will substitute us in the near future.
Great.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm
super enthusiastic approach to this topic.
yeah. It showcases the usefulness, right? So
yeah.
if you don't like us, then you know the potential that it has, right?
Yeah, great.
It's one way to look at it.
Yeah, sure.
So before we dive deeper into it, the topic of this week is ChatGPT, our friend, our closest neighbor, and maybe our love, at least.
For you?
Yeah, I must say I have a kind of...
You can ask it to write you sweet messages.
Sure. Yeah, but I'm an emotional man, so I can have it, I can use it.
Oh God.
Listen, no human has enough love, right? There is no such thing as too much love.
Familiarity breeds contempt.
Okay, great. So that isn't the case with ChatGPT. So okay. Let's first give a broad introduction, because we have just noticed that we already did a short episode about it, but that has been a couple of months ago,
and it never got released. Let's mention that.
Yeah. ChatGPT is a tool. It's a natural language model created and made by OpenAI, and OpenAI is founded by our great and dear friend Elon Musk, but not only him, also a couple of other people. Especially the last couple of months. Quite some interesting things happen, and before you are going to give us a clear example how ChatGPT can influence our society, and you can elaborate on that. It is maybe interesting to maybe just take a look at it from a more holistic view. Maybe you can say from a propeller perspective. I'm not sure if that works in English, but sure. And
helicopter view works.
Helicopter view, yeah, indeed. For all people that...
an eagle's eye.
An eagle's eye, okay, great. Now, this is the reason why ChatGPT will...
I hate that I have to correct myself. The common expression is a bird's eye view. Yeah, really. Not my strongest moment.
No, but you have helped me so many times that this is... you got a buffer, let's say. No, but maybe just to introduce it, anyone can make an account, and then you can pose it questions. And what it does is, they have been working on the project for a couple of years now. OpenAI was founded in 2015 or 16. But maybe the interesting thing is, it's maybe twofold. So one is that now it has some, you can really use it. So it has a value, and anyone can make an account and use it right now if he has a computer or internet. And the answers that it is generating is like, useful. It is not anymore in its infancy, you can almost say. So businesses will use it, and I've heard a couple of students that are also using it, maybe not in the best way, but that even universities right now are almost ringing the bell and saying, we cannot distinguish the work from the AI and the students.
So that's an ongoing battle right now. But I'll tell you about that a little bit more. About that later.
Sorry. So I didn't want to indeed touch upon it, but what I wanted to say was more that now it is useful, and so you see that a lot of people have tried it. A lot of people see the usefulness in it, and a lot of businesses want to buy it, even. But for me, and maybe just to take that as a start, and then you can go further. I think it's interesting to note that it is indeed founded by Elon Musk. He's not in any way engaged anymore, but he founded it, and with the vision that artificial intelligence in general could be very useful, but it's also dangerous. Yeah. And he wanted to make sure that not the AI power was coming into the hands of a few. And now what happened is the last couple of months that the lawyers and the advisors of Microsoft have, and don't ask me how they did it, but that they were able to buy the intellectual property of open AI. And I mean, to be clear, it was a non-profit, and I mean that was an ambition, an aspiration that should have been there for forever, because therefore it was incorporated in the name. Open AI, open for anyone, everyone, and it should benefit society as a whole. Again, not to help concentrate power. And now what you have seen is the moment it really has, or is valuable, useful for a lot of people, you can also make money with it, and you see Microsoft and its team jumping on it. And now they have made a deal in which they have acquired the intellectual property, or at least they can use it, but they have also wrote some conditions in the sense of that, or with the respect that if it's true that it will be even more useful in the near future, that they can acquire like the 100% of the shares. In other words, that they can just really acquire OpenAI, and maybe then the business as a business is still there, but the let's say the intellectual property is sold to Microsoft and they can use it. And that is what they did, because they incorporated it into Bing to compete with Google in the search market. Yeah. And what you have seen now, last month, since they made it public, that indeed a lot of people are now using Microsoft Edge, are using Bing due to that functionality. Yeah. So you see it works. And even when we can discuss the morale, for a lot of people, and I think we had already a couple of discussions about it, that some people or a lot of people say, we want best for society, and but ultimately when people have to make some decisions, it's about having the best for the less, right? So and people are not willing to pay a premium for fairness, you could say, you could argue. But that is what we all say we want, and maybe that is food for thought. But I thought that was maybe at least interesting to give just an introduction of the development of ChatGPT and the aspiration and where it is right now. But in this episode, we want to really take a deep dive into, how can ChatGPT influence us as a person, but also businesses and our society as a whole, and how will the future look like? How will it develop when it becomes ChatGPT and or Bing, for that matter, will improve and become even better than they are right now. But maybe because you are working in the education space, and we can already see that compromising information is something that ChatGPT is really good at. Can you tell us how you see ChatGPT influencing education?
Yeah, for sure. I can let you know my thoughts. So I think the first introduction for ChatGPT is education, just as a general thing. I think most people first thought when coming across it, or perhaps the people that started using it first were students, because they tend to use social media a lot, and I think it really blew up on social media. So the first thing that most people use it for is, and what it's been commonly known for, is to write an essay for you, basically. Because there is a prompt that you can give ChatGPT, which is basically write me an essay on this and this chapter, and it'll write a pretty seamless essay, where you might need to edit a word here and there, but all in all, it will give you something that you can hand in, and it will take about 5 seconds, while normally it could take people up to a few hours, depending on how good they are. Now, of course, some teachers had a problem with this because they felt like their students were not finishing their assignments properly or not learning. And there's an argument to be had there. But one thing that I found very interesting is that people were, of course, using it to write an essay. And to combat this, there has been two approaches. One has been to completely ban ChatGPT from schools and not allowing it to be used anywhere. And the other is to have another AI software that is good at recognizing whether an essay was written by AI software. So we have AI checking AI now, which is... It's funny that we're here already.
Almost a simulation.
Yeah. It's we're going into the rabbit hole right now.
The Matrix is there.
Yeah. We are there.
Andrew, we're coming.
Yeah. I think his sentence has been postponed for the 7th time now.
Maybe they were waiting for the episode.
Yeah. Exactly. This is your call. Stop doing 50 push-ups and just break out. Okay. Back to topic. The thing is that a lot of teachers are struggling to find out how to be able to deal with ChatGPT in a good manner, because there's kind of an argument going on. If you can use ChatGPT to finish your assignment really easily, and we as teachers are demanding that you finish the assignment, then you have done what we asked of you. So how can we be mad that you use the tool? Yeah, but really, it's not that weird of an argument if you think about it. Because, of course, our goal is to teach, right? To give you knowledge, to make you understand something. But perhaps then we should formulate our questions or make our expectations be known in such a way that you aren't able to just use ChatGPT to come up with an answer. Perhaps teachers need to step their game up in a sense. Which is, I think it's... there are some holes in it, but I think it's a valid thing to mention. Because I am also of the belief that just pushing manual work and having to do things like write a gajillion essays or just do menial, basic, boring tasks, to be honest, I can understand if that means you use ChatGPT to save you time, because it helps. And being a student and having a lot of work for a lot of different classes can be tough. And if using ChatGPT means that you get 2 hours more sleep and you're already behind about 16 hours, I can get your motivation. I can understand it. But on the other hand, and this is kind of the negative side of it, the other side of it, which I am really excited about, is that students can use ChatGPT when they are struggling with a certain subject, assignment, you name it. And of course, almost all the knowledge that a student needs could be found online or could be found in the books that they have to use for their education. But everybody that has once tried to find information in a book knows that it will take you some time to actually find the information you need if you need to know something specific. What ChatGPT allows is that you can just ask a very specific questions about a specific question about a subject that you're studying or an assignment that you're making, and it will give an appropriate answer, and it'll allow you to get further on with your research, meaning you can work faster and more efficiently. And that is really exciting and promising, because that means that students are less reliant on their teachers. And that might seem like a problem in itself, but in reality, teachers have a lot of work to do. And sadly, we cannot be there for every student all the time, even though we'd love to be. But it's just impossible. And every student has different needs, and every student works at a different pace. Now, what ChatGPT allows is for every student, at some point at least, with the ability of different AI tools that will come out, is that students are able to have an individual line of work they can do. They can work at their own pace because it will be individually personalized for them. And any questions they have on the material, they are able to ask to an AI, which really could speed up the learning process for a lot of students. And especially if you've ever been at a class and you've been the smartest kid or if you've been the dumbest kid in the class, not pointing fingers, you know what it can be like to not align with the rest of the class. And especially in these scenarios, a tool like ChatGPT could be essential and really could be revolutionary for the education system. So that's something I'm really excited about and would love to see implications of it. So, does that answer your question to a satisfying degree?
Sure, but to be honest, if you would really want to satisfy me, you should just keep talking because can't get enough about it.
Usually you love it when I open my mouth and don't say anything.
I hate that you have to edit this.
I'm not going to.
yeah, that is your part. You will. Okay, listen. That is for you to remember.
Yeah,
because
no, I'm not going to.
Yeah, you are, man. What? Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
No,
You're cussing.
No.
I will edit the cuss, but not.
No. No.
You'll see it happen.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, no, I thought you weren't done yet, but
I can talk a little bit more about it. For example, this is kind of what is for what is happening with students. What is also an implication is what teachers are able to do with it specifically. So I already mentioned that you're able to create a personal individual layout for a student, which could be super beneficial. But there's a lot of uses that a teacher can have for it as well. For example, a teacher that might not be very familiar with poetry but would love to do an exercise on it can ask, what are some basic rules for writing poetry? Or what are some good things to start with? What are some good people to look at if you want to get into poetry? You can take a look. It'll give you some helpful recommendations and you can get started by yourself. But it is very nice to be able to have that push. I really like to see it as lube almost. When you're stuck, OpenAI will give you a little bit of lube so you can keep going. Perhaps not the wisest choice of word, but who cares? Anyway, the applications of a teacher go much further than that because this is one thing, but you can also ask it to, for example, to set up or ask for lesson ideas or lesson plans even. If you don't know what to do with a group of students, especially because you're new or because you're trying to be creative, have more ideas, see what you can do, you can add a bunch of information to your ChatGPT prompts and get very specific results, very creative and new ideas, which could make your classes a whole lot more fun for yourself and for your students. Because I've also had to create a bunch of lesson plans, and it can be fun to come up with something on yourself, but it's a whole lot less fun when you have to think of something and you're really stuck. So in those scenarios, it could be super nice. Then you also, of course, have the menial tasks such as grading papers or, for example, having to analyze essays. Well, ChatGPT could also do that, but then of course you have to think, okay, well, you have to analyze an essay, but it could also have been written by an AI. So we're gonna run into some problems there. But yeah, the idea, of course, is to have a student learn. And I think one of a funny thing that you could do, for example, is say you actually want them to write an essay because it's an important skill to have and they're going to be graded on it on the exam. You can say, listen, use ChatGPT all you want, but you're not going to be able to use it on the exam, so you're going to have to be able to do it by yourself. Just knowing that, because I think knowing that already makes a decent difference, because it's your responsibility, right? And you can't see what happens when they go home. That's always been the case. Before there was ChatGPT, there was older brothers and sisters who have done the same thing, who can share the answers, right? And there's a lot more of it online. But what you could also do is then have an essay written by ChatGPT that you can show in class and be like, this is written by an AI. This is what is really good about it, and this is what's wrong. You can learn from it. Now that is a powerful and creative tool, and the way that you can use ChatGPT in your benefit in the classroom. And I think that is a much better way of dealing with it than to say it's banned or you can't do it or whatever. Another thing that teachers, for example, could use it for is to set up a program in which you have your end goal for what you want your students to be able to do at the end of the year. You can ask ChatGPT, can you divide it into 12 different steps so you have a better idea, a sense where to place it. Perhaps ChatGPT isn't able to fully execute all these tools, but as time will go on, as time passes, as more inventions and tools will come out, these things, these ideas will become realities, and they will take a huge workload of teachers. And a lot of what teachers have to do is administrative work, sitting behind their laptop, typing, not teaching. And what teachers do best is teaching. So by giving them the most amount of time that they can actually teach and letting a lot of the menial work and administrative work fall back on ChatGPT, we can have a lot more efficient education and a lot more pleasurable for teachers. And teachers that are happy means students that are happier as well and more passionate. And I think that is something that is really positive, which I can really see happening in the near future. So I'm super excited about that.
Okay, great. Okay. Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So maybe to organize a little bit the path for maybe listeners, right? So just got an introduction. Yeah, Tom is indeed a great teacher. I have experienced that myself. So it is indeed, I think, super interesting to hear your perspective, because especially, you're working in education, and indeed, like you just explained, education is the sector where, if you think about conveying a message, about teaching knowledge or capabilities, that is what ChatGPT does the best, right? It is indeed a better Google Plus in that sense, that it can even generate and accumulate more and relevant information in a much shorter time frame, right? Which is in essence the whole, maybe not the conveying part or the teaching part, but that is the big part of teaching, right? You as a teacher should accumulate the knowledge, understand it yourself, and then that is part one. Part two is trying your best to efficiently or effectively convey that message. Now, maybe to dive deeper a little bit into this, and then maybe take indeed the more of a bird's eye view. I want to ask you, do you believe that by using ChatGPT that your students will become smarter, or would you rather argue the other way around?
So I think this is a great question. I touched on it a little bit, but I think it's really about whether the students are able to take responsibility.
In the sense of?
Because if you take responsibility of your using ChatGPT, like I said with the essay example, if you use ChatGPT for writing an essay for you, and you get to the final exam room, you've used ChatGPT 3 times and you haven't done it yourself, you're going to have a tough time there. But if you've taken responsibility and said, okay, I've used ChatGPT to write an essay, I've looked at the essay, I've tried to correct it, then I've tried to also write one myself, asked ChatGPT to correct mine, and based on that, I've been able to gather some information, tried it again, and I got a pretty satisfying result. And I'm confident that when I go into the exam room, the combined knowledge of me and ChatGPT, that is now my own, I will be able to get a good grade. Now, those are two completely different scenarios, and both use ChatGPT. It's about how you use it. And I think it's an incredibly powerful tool, but it depends on the person. And I think to go into your point, I think an important question might be to ask, can we trust especially younger students to use ChatGPT responsibly? And that is more of a tough one.
And how would you incentivize people or students to take responsibility then in that sense?
So one sense, of course, is to be able to say to them, listen, you can use it now, but you won't be able to use it at the exam, which is one thing, of course. But I think also showing them, in a sense, teaching them ChatGPT, the abilities that it has, the uses that it has, and showing the ways that you can effectively use it in your benefit, and in a way that will allow you to learn. I think perhaps it is also a fault in education. I think it's something that a lot of people are working hard at, myself included, is to change education in a sense that the focus is back on learning and not on memorization and one-time chunks of knowledge that you need to be able to deliver, because that's not what education should be about, in my opinion. But for example, I can take an example of one of my colleagues who had a really fun exercise that I hadn't thought of at all, which was to use an AI which was a creative AI. So you give it some words and it makes some imagery, some art, and he put in some buzzwords without showing the students what they were. Of course, a picture was generated, and then he asked the students, what do you think are the terms what are the buzzwords that I typed in to make this image? They had to guess, and this, of course, tests their vocabulary, and it also shows that you are able to use AI to learn, and opposite way. Because if you, for example, type in Picasso, you will get the art style that Picasso used. But if you type in cubic, futuristic, Futurama, you will get a very different art style, and it's able. Okay, can you recognize the patterns in that? And that is, for example, a really nice, cute little exercise which you could use an AI to show the different uses that it has. But another way would be to, like I said, let them use it themselves. For example, one of the things that we try to teach students at the school that I work at is event planning. So they need to be able to schedule an event, say for the entire school, we're going on a school trip. They need to take care of the buses. They need to see how long it takes, how much money it takes, where we're going to be, meet up places, etc. You could use ChatGPT whenever you're stuck. I mean, I'm guessing that it doesn't have complete knowledge of the bus fares and Google Maps yet. It'll come at some time, I'm sure. But you could, for example, ask what would be the most efficient route, or we have to be here by this and this time. How would this work? Or can you help me with the translation of this? Because it's tough, because I work with a lot of kids that don't speak Dutch natively. So for them, it could be a really useful tool to help them in translating certain things. So yeah, there's almost an infinite amount of uses. And I think to be able to show them how to use this as effectively as a tool, we could hopefully prevent them from seeing it as something to cheat with. Because really, as we're trying to teach them, we're trying to give them as many tools as possible to thrive in the modern world. And by holding it back, which has been the approach of some schools, by saying, okay, you can't use it because you won't learn how to do it yourself, is the same thing as saying, okay, everybody has to work individually because you need to do it by yourself, and never learning the strength of working together. And there's also one of the big problems that we have in education is every standardized test ever, you have to make it by yourself. How many people work by themselves as a job?
Yeah, okay. But I got you. But let's bring it back a bit, because there are so many things that we can touch upon. But okay, what I hear you say is, if you would answer the question, does it make students smarter or not? You say your answer is really depending, you say it depends on the fact to what extent students take responsibility when using it, right?
Yeah, to a large degree.
Okay, but I get that. But what isn't clear for me is that, but maybe it is closely related, and then I don't get it. So therefore I'm asking. I would say that for me there are two ways of arguing. In a sense of, I don't know what will happen, right? But for me, those two are either one of them is going to happen because they exclude each other in one way or another. So I would say one way of thinking about it would be, okay, the more you use GPT, the more stupid you will get because you will get lazy. And so the people that aren't that smart right now will not become smarter when you have it. No, they will get even more. They will become more. Laziness is the sibling of starvation. A little bit like that, right? The other and smart people on the other hand, who then indeed in your terminology would take responsibility and use it in their advantage in a sense of making processes easier without losing their creative mind or their knowledge or whatever it is, right? But another way of reasoning could be that you could say, okay, in the light of nature nurture, which is on itself an interesting discussion, that you could argue that, okay, we do not know to what extent human behavior is relatable to nurture and nature, but we know that nurture and nature are like super important, and maybe is nurture even more important than nature. And if that is the case or not really doesn't matter because it's still super important, then you could say, okay, by having a chat GPT, it would level the playing field. It would enable a lot of people that are in less educated households to have, let's say, access to a same amount of information that another person from a wealthy household has. And now you can say, yeah, okay, due to the internet and due to Google, we already saw, okay, it helped, right? Yeah. Because before the internet, you were more dependent on your network. Now you got the internet, and it allowed people to get a network even if you didn't have it. And so you could compete with people that had a super extensive network. So it leveled the playing field. Same then could be true for ChatGPT. So from the, let's say, if you look from this perspective, and you can still take into account the responsibility, but then I would argue that it's still important in either case. What is your philosophy? What will happen with people in general or students specifically, whatever you like to answer, when having ChatGPT? Do you think students will become more stupid, or do you think it would level
the playing field?
Yeah.
I think it's a really good question, really good question. So kudos to you for that. And oddly enough, I think it's all a little bit true. Because there will definitely be, and you can just guarantee there will definitely be students that are quite lazy. I don't like calling students lazy, but let's just say they are typically not inclined to show up on time, show a lot of motivation into their work, etc., etc. We all know them. And there's usually something going on behind the scenes or whatever. In any case, the behavior is there. I think those people will also be inclined to use ChatGPT as a way of avoiding responsibility and allowing themselves to take advantage of ChatGPT in a way that won't benefit them in their knowledge, but will benefit them in saving their time. Right? It's going to happen. I don't think that needs to be argued. I do, however, think there's also going to be a lot of smart people or a lot of students that are very motivated. It doesn't even have to be smart. It doesn't even have to be a little bit smart, as long as you know how to use a computer, which is basically every kid now, because you get handed a phone when you're 4, or a tablet when you're 1. So the thing there is that it allows a lot of people that are motivated to use their motivation to keep growing as much as they want, which is incredibly powerful. Because at some point there's a limit to how much your mom and dad want to talk and want to interact and want to keep doing, because it takes a lot of energy. But ChatGPT doesn't get tired. So if a child for some reason wants to spend 5 hours getting really good at math, go for it. You have the ability to do that. And say a child is super interested in that one topic, he can really go deep into it, and that is never before seen knowledge. Not to this extent, not without having to get a certain book, having to understand the book. No, in your terms, at your speed, it will be explained to you. So there's some really interesting work there, and I think a lot of knowledgeable people will be able to use it and do some really incredible things. On the other side of your question, which was the philosophy of, sorry, could you just flicker the flame one more time?
Flicker. Yeah, so that you could say, so that this what you just gave is an argument for level the playing field.
Yeah,
the other would be that it would make people that aren't that smart even more lazy.
Yeah, no, sorry. I didn't argue my case for leveling the playing field. I wanted to delve into that. Sorry, I'm trying to keep it all attached. So indeed, the leveling of the playing field, that the people who are typically less successful in educative endeavors are now able to go along with the rest of the class. Now, I think that will happen to a certain degree, especially those who are typically struggling in educational situations because of external factors. For example, they don't get along with their classmates, they don't feel comfortable in school, they don't like the way it's being taught. You can name a million other things. For them, and of course it won't be for everyone, but for some people, being alone, isolated with a computer could be ideal for them. Especially people that, for example, are autistic or very antisocial. Those might thrive in that environment and might be able to shoot far past what they would normally be able to achieve. So I think for that reason, a lot of people that are quite low ranking could suddenly become competitive or even dominant in certain fields. However, I always think there's going to be some people lacking, because I don't see. You also have to be able to understand ChatGPT in a certain sense. You have to know what it does and how you can use it. And if you just see it as a tool to benefit you, as it saves you time and it's easy and it's nice and it's a commodity, then you won't get as much out of it. And therefore, people that are already naturally smart in the sense that they have a high IQ, or they are decently good with computers or understand the way coding works in a sense, you understand the way computers talk. Let's put it like that. Those people will be able to maximize the ability that ChatGPT can give them. So the maximum profit, you could say. So therefore, it will balance out. But I think, all in all, it's like a rising tide that lifts all boats. And of course, there's always going to be people that are left behind, and those people should never be forgotten. But in general, I believe that it's going to create a better learning result and better education and better knowledge and better results for everybody if you take the big picture. So I think it's just a net positive, which is really exciting because, how can it not be? So, that's my philosophy on the matter. Hope that kind of covers it, or is something still lacking?
No, it does, because I had a follow-up, and I think you laid the path for yourself to elaborate on it. And my follow-up would be, you just talked about, will it make people lazier, or will it level the playing field in a sense of the knowledge gap.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
But how do you view the same question? So will it make people better or worse off in a sense of equality? Equality. So do you think that financially, ultimately, right? So do you think that by having access to ChatGPT in general, that it will increase or decrease equality?
Financial equality.
Yeah, or inequality, depending on what your view is. But in the same light, like, okay, could it be that the people that already know how to use some tools will benefit much more from it than the people that don't, which would increase the inequality? Other way around, the knowledge gap, and that is based on the previous answer you just gave, okay, would level the playing field. Like you just said, all tides lift all boats.
A rising tide lifts all boats.
Then, okay, in that sense, you could argue, okay, it would level the playing field, and so it would also be partly maybe a solution to close the financial inequality.
That's good. That's an interesting proposition. I don't think it will ameliorate the financial gap, but I definitely think it will. What I think it will do is it will perhaps not maximize, but to a certain degree, it will utilize a lot of unused potential, especially in people that are held back or are not showing their full potential. They will be given a chance to do so in certain scenarios. But of course, there is difference between people, and that is just a fact. And we have also learned that if you are below a certain point of IQ, that certain things would just be impossible for you to do. For example, understanding and using a computer at a certain point, it just becomes something you can't ask of someone, and that is a sad reality, right? Because we would like to think that everybody with enough effort, enough help, enough personal guidance, anybody can do almost anything, but that's just not the case, and that is a reality we also need to face and need to accept, and we need that in a sense. We need people that are smarter. We need people that are dumber, to put it plainly, because there's a lot of work that would be incredible. So take somebody that's super duper smart, like Einstein, right? Einstein's smart. You're going to make him deliver mail packages. Yeah, I'm sure he will figure out something fun to do in his car while he's driving. But I think everybody can say that's a huge waste of potential, right? But if there is somebody who is has a very low IQ and is struggling to make ends meet, and he is just smart enough to deliver packages, for them that could be an incredibly meaningful job. Because that means they get to be part of society, they get to say hi to people, they get to be kind of active, they get to listen to a podcast or listen to music in their car. For them, it could be almost a dream. And I don't mean to make it romantic and anything, right? Because it's still just delivering packages. But there is a natural order in which people can kind of fall into in society. And IQ plays a part in that. And that's been well researched. So because of that, I don't think it will remove inequality, and I don't think it will bridge the gap that much. I think there's people that are quite smart or quite unutilized in education that will be given a good shot and that will be able to do something incredible. And I think that there's a lot of people, especially here of what I've noticed, that are not that stupid, but just had some behavioral problems or were going through some stuff and got put in an unfortunate position. And I think this is a potential way out, and the more ways out, the better. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I do think it will definitely help in that regard. But like you mentioned already, and like I also said a little bit, is that the smartest people that understand it the best will benefit the most, and that's what's going to be. But you also have to realize that is kind of a good thing. Because that means the smartest people have the best access to the best tools that can make the biggest difference. And those are very competent people that you want to be able to do the most for your society.
Yeah, okay, I agree, but two things. So one, you could say that is always the case, that the smartest people are using a new technology in the best way. That is what makes them smart. So right. So, but the other could be, and that is a less promising thing, is that I think implicitly you assume that intelligent people or whatever will then use it in society for benefit, which is, I think, not a sure thing, right? So you could argue that maybe if you're smart and you just want to make money, then you could use ChatGPT indeed more effectively than someone else, but that wouldn't for sure or per se improve society. Other way around, I could rather see, or I see a higher probability in which the other way around would happen, and people would not misuse it, but would see so many opportunities and say, hey, wait, I can automate with ChatGPT your work, and then I can earn your money, and now you don't have your work anymore, and I have more money. I don't think that is
of course
beneficial, right?
Right, and there is something to say for that, but I would have two things to say to that. Is one, it is kind of the natural order, and especially when it comes to technological innovation. I mean, for example, you are quite a fan of Elon Musk, right? And he is also creating the humanoid robot. You are also under the assumption and have the knowledge that will eventually also probably overtake jobs, and probably a good bit of them.
Normally, I don't broadcast my political views, but sure, for this one exception,
I figured this is the one thing you wouldn't mind sharing that much.
Yeah, sure.
So the thing that comes down to is that when we have big technological revolutions that can make grand changes and can optimize things. For example, if there is a process which could be done very quickly and efficiently by ChatGPT, which is right now being done by a person, perhaps in that situation, it's a terrible thing for that person to lose their job. Because, it could be a million reasons why, but losing your job when you're expecting not to lose your job is always an unfortunate thing, at least in the moment. However, that did mean that there was some inefficiency to be found, and there was some way to do it more effectively. And that person could perhaps then find a different job in which some role that couldn't be served by a robot is being fueled. And I think the more that starts to happen, the more jobs that right now don't seem worth it will become worth it. In a sense of, take for example, maintenance for certain things, right? Of course, we can talk about humanoid robots doing just about everything. We're not at that stage yet. But there's a lot of things in a big city, for especially, that just need to be maintained. They just need to be handled. They just need to be taken care of. Well, if it becomes a reasonable thing for people to do that, then we are all living in a more maintained society. And it's a wonder that the lights are working, a miracle that the lights are working all the time. But there's a lot of things except for that. You have the pavement, you have nature, you have the water quality, and a billion other things, right? So those are, for example, things that could open up or become more interesting. So I think for that reason, in the moment it might be a bad thing, but in the future it could be a promising thing. But that is something we will have to wait and see. On the other hand, and that is more of a philosophical query. You say somebody that's very smart with the best tools the access to the best tools might not always do what's best for society, because they will probably do what's best for themselves. I think it's fair, because people do tend to act in their own self-interest. However, I am of the belief that humans do want to be inherently good. They want to be a positive force for the world. And of course, that also depends on a lot of other factors outside of how you've lived. But I mean, of course, there's always going to be costs. There's always going to be people that are hurt by your growth. But to be able to make a lot of money and be incredibly efficient and to serve a giant, have a giant company, that means you also have to serve a giant role to society, because otherwise your business doesn't work. For example, even a Jeff Bezos, you may not like him, but he does run Amazon, or he's a part owner for it, which is one of the biggest packaging and delivery companies in the world, or the biggest, which, you know, also has a big role to play in society. And the reason that he gets to stay so wealthy is because that service is so incredibly useful to people. And so in that sense, I would say that somebody incredibly rich, who is incredibly smart and successful, also has to serve a purpose, because otherwise it doesn't work.
No, sure. But that is... No, I agree. But that is a different discussion. Because take your example of an Amazon, sure, but we are not arguing to what extent, or if like the question, is it in one way beneficial for society? Sure, it is. But the question is, does that compensate for the inequality that it creates? And if you look at Jeff Bezos, I think it is a fair assessment to, it's fair to argue that Amazon, despite all the societal value, I also think that is arguable. But sure, I will go with you that far, that then still it is at the expense of equality. Because a lot of households, almost anyone indeed, is paying for Amazon stuff. But the wealth is going to that one person in particular. Yeah, so that is an example, and that was indeed like the basis of the question. So that, I think that is a different discussion. I think of course it has some societal value, and especially the people that are the smartest will use it the most effectively, in a sense, and they will do that in their self-interest. But by acting in the self-interest, they will also benefit society. I mean, that is the whole thing of capitalism in general, right? That as long as people are acting in the self-own interest, they will benefit society. But that doesn't mean that it can't at the same time also improve inequality, which is a bad thing, of course. And so that was...
to be honest, I don't want to interrupt you, but I wouldn't say that inequality is necessarily a bad thing, because at that point you're starting to talk about equality of outcome, and that is an impossible thing to regulate.
No, it's not about regulate, but therefore it's a philosophical question. It isn't that you have to implement it tomorrow. It's just about, okay, we have a tool. Do we think this tool will worsen or will worsen or not the inequality? And indeed, I agree that is another discussion to what extent we want that really to happen. But for the sake of the philosophical discussion, it's just, do you think that ultimately it will will lead to a situation in which there is a more extreme distribution of financial outcomes?
Yeah, no, I get what you're going for, but for me the important equality that we should try to strive for is an equality of opportunity, and for that reason ChatGPT is a miraculous tool, because everybody that has internet access, which is more and more every day, is able to use an incredibly powerful tool for themselves, which means that everybody is again one step ahead. Same way that you said it with the internet, everybody suddenly just got one power up. If you're from a poor household, if you're all the way the other side of the planet, it doesn't matter, because now you have internet and you have a lot more power at your hands. Same thing is true for ChatGPT. and what it will produce in the end, I think there's always going to be more. I don't know if it's going to be more or less equality where there's different financial outcomes. I think it might be mitigated a little bit by the fact that there's people that will be able to unleash their potential that was previously withheld from society. So in that sense, I think it will, to a certain degree. Don't think it's going to be that big of a difference, though. I think that's where I stand.
Yeah. Okay. No, and I think that's. I mean, no one knows what will happen, right? But I follow the reasoning of the internet, and therefore I would argue that the internet has brought more inequality ultimately. But I think if you look at the average income of a citizen of the Netherlands, of Europe, then the past 30, 40 years, but also the past 50 years, the average income of a household has increased. That doesn't say anything about what the distinction is between the top 1% and the rest of 99. That has increased even more, but I don't mind. I would rather have a situation in which that is still the case, as long as an average household will improve. And I think in that sense, I follow the internet reasoning. So I think we are on the same page then, that you have the opportunity and therefore you can use it, and it will not, and that says nothing about that even smarter people can use it even more in their benefit. But I would rather have that situation than no ChatGPT and no improvement, or not that extra opportunity for especially the lower class. Yeah, the lower class. Let's call it like that.
Yeah, no, we're on the same page.
And maybe as a last one for me, at least for this topic.
Are you okay? I can feel the life being drained out of you.
No, sure.
You need to tell me if I go on for too long. You know.
Do you think that because you have already touched upon it a couple of times, do you think that I would say maybe discuss it in light of indeed teaching your students. Do you think that when you are preparing your students, which is also part of teaching?
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe even the most important part. Do you think, let me phrase it differently, would you advise your students to teach themselves, and even you could even go as far as saying that you would teach them a different skill set now that ChatGPT is here? Would you say there is a change? Do you think there is a different skill set necessary to be productive, effective, and...
No, I think a lot of the same values that I believe in are still incredibly relevant, like discipline, responsibility, hard work, just plain hard work, thinking outside of the box. Yeah, and there's a couple more, right? You get the idea. Those principles still stand. However, when it comes to a skill set, I mean, unless you want to do something with translation or tourism or something, then French and German aren't that useful while you work in the Netherlands. Just to make it very simple, right? They can be, but as a general rule. And there's a lot of different classes that you get offered which can be useful in a certain scenario, and depending on what you want to do, and certain things that aren't. But as a general thing, I do believe, especially now that ChatGPT is here, that you should be able to see how it works and understand it, and that is a invaluable tool. And it's also been a reasonably recent development. Is something that I found super interesting, is teaching my students how to code, that they should learn how to code. It doesn't matter that you have to be incredibly good, but understand how it works, what it is. And as you know, ChatGPT can also help you with coding, which is great, very useful. So allowing students to see the value in that, and being able to explain to them why that is so valuable, why they're such an ask for it, and what are the things they can do with that. I think those are two things that have become really important, especially in recent years, because what we want to do is prepare them for the future. ChatGPT, AI, coding, those are things that are going to be essential in the future, and there's more and more and more ask for them, and I can guarantee it's going to be a continuing trend. So it's not like I can tell you, it's kind of interesting right now, it's kind of high, but might be nothing in 20 years. That's not happening. So because of that, I think that's something I really want to prepare them for, and especially once I get to be able to teach at a class where I'm actually able to, have my own class and have my own students. These are values that I'd really like to instill in them, and to really think about why it's important.
Okay, but to be concrete, what skills do you think are less relevant in the future, and what skills do you think become more relevant in the future? Maybe give 3 of each.
Okay, so skills that I think are becoming really important in the future. One will be able to do research on your own. I should rephrase. To be able to teach yourself something. That's number one. To be able to teach yourself something. The second, I would say, is to be able to use an AI, it's kind of between knowing how to use an AI, but that's kind of teaching yourself how to study and learning how to code, these basics. And third, I would like to teach them, but that's been an ancient value, how to work together with people properly. And not that you're the leader and taking everybody along, and not that you're the follower going with the leader. You need to learn how to work together properly. 3 things that are, I don't think, as important anymore.
Due to ChatGPT.
Yeah, due to ChatGPT. I think, for example, menial tasks like it's tough. I don't think it's really invalidated that much. Yeah, like a menial task like checking your own homework, but there's value in doing that with ChatGPT. I almost want to say math, but then you're gonna get really mad at me.
It would be interesting that you're that on the, let's say, one category which is important for the future, there is code, and then less relevant is math.
Yeah, no,
it's your answer. You may.
Yeah, no. I the thing is that I already had this sneaking suspicion with when calculators came, right? For example, of course, mathematics is important. I'm not going to argue that it isn't. However, because there was calculators came, suddenly having to do everything in your head was not as important, right? But we still teach you how to at least do some basic math in your head, because it's important to be able to understand how to do that. And now with the contribution of ChatGPT also there, you could say, okay, even less of mathematics needs to be done in your head. You need to be better at using a calculator, and now you need to also know how you can use ChatGPT with mathematics, right? You could argue in that direction. So for that, you could say it's become less important.
No, I got you, but if I may interrupt, I mean that is the interesting thing, I think, at least, about this whole discussion, because I can completely follow your reasoning with the calculator, right? To take an example. But what I think has happened since the calculator is indeed that due to the calculator that the highest salary that you would get for someone who is who can calculate really great, that salary will decrease, in the sense of that person is less relevant. But what I think has at the same time happened at the same time is that because everybody had access to a calculator, that people forgot that, or thought that doing calculations in your head was almost unnecessary because you had a calculator.
Yeah.
And so because everyone was thinking that, almost nobody can calculate in his head, and therefore it's becoming even more valuable than it was before.
Yeah.
And that is the interesting dynamic.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that there's definitely some merit to what you're saying. So I take your point, for sure. And therefore I'm really happy that I'm able to do math in my head to a decent degree, because I believe this is true. And if I were to judge from the students that I teach, this is not such a weird proposition, because a lot of them, when they don't know how to do it, they will pull out the calculator. And it's quite simple, especially kids, younger adults, they will take the path of least resistance. And there, I think there is a danger with ChatGPT.
Which links to your responsibility.
Which links to the responsibility point, exactly. And therefore, I think it's perhaps top of the list, important skills for the future. Responsibility number one, right? Because we have. I can tell you one thing of my personal experience. We have one student at my school. She isn't particularly super smart or anything, or extremely creative, or extremely talented. But there's one thing, and she's super driven. Not even, I wouldn't even say super motivated, because she's tired in class, she's not feeling it, she's not always joining with everything. But she makes notes in every class, and every day she works at home and she does her thing. And I can tell you right now, she is racing ahead of the rest with incredible speed. And that is because she takes it seriously. And she takes responsibility for her own education, in the sense of, I cannot expect my teachers to teach me everything. I have to also take it into my own hands. And that is the idea of what homework is supposed to do for you, is to teach you how to do your own work and how to prepare yourself. And that is one thing you could argue, okay, this is becoming less important because of ChatGPT, is homework. Yeah, in the small letters, with the understanding that you need to teach yourself how to do things, and need to teach yourself how to become smarter and how to learn things, because that is also a class that is being taught at school right now where I work, learning how to learn. And you can tell that a lot of people are clueless because they don't know how to teach themselves things. So I think that is also really becoming important.
Okay, great. Do you want to add something? Do you have a question, or do you want to do you have a feeling we haven't discussed something which is important to discuss?
I think we really covered a lot of it. I'm thinking if I have a closing statement. No, I think we got it. Do you have anything left to add?
No, not really. Maybe I would conclude with saying that I think that creativity, critical thinking, and empathy are for me important skills for the future of tomorrow. And I think skills that are becoming less and less relevant due to ChatGPT are skills like knowledge. And I sure think that knowledge to a certain degree is relevant, but because since the internet, not that Google is the internet, but Google was the dominant search engine on the internet. So if you wanted to search something on the internet, it wasn't a matter of, okay, do you have the knowledge? No, it was rather a question, okay, do you know where to find the knowledge? And that translated due to the dominant Google search engine on the internet to the skill, okay, how good can you Google? Right?
Yeah.
So having knowledge before the internet translated to how good can you Google? And so I would say that maybe as another important skill is how well can you phrase questions, and therefore on the other hand, or the other way, then skills that would be less relevant is indeed the knowledge, because it's not the knowledge or knowing where to find it, but rather how to extract it, how to extract the right information. So just the knowledge on itself, I think, is less important. I think that repeating people or repeating opinions. So then I would really almost argue the opposite skill set of the skills that I think are important. So it is related to the creativity point. So I think, yeah, sure, you need to know how to extract the right information. And what I see around me is that a lot of people can watch YouTube, maybe can know how to find the right YouTube video and extract the right information from it, but then repeat almost whole anecdotes of the things that they have seen or heard in the video. And I'm thinking like, yeah, but everyone can within 1 second find the same YouTube video, and now with ChatGPT I can find in milliseconds not only the right video but exactly the right second that they said that. And so then being able to reproduce things are, in my opinion, becoming less and less relevant, because it's not about reproducing, but having a creative and critical mind, and being able to use that as a sort of a basis to formulate your own opinion and to link, and that is again the holistic view. So the tunnel vision then would be my answer to that. I think is a skill that is becoming less and less in your advantage to have, and being able to link different aspects, and especially things that maybe on first sight don't look like they have anything to do with each other, but being able to link them with each other and find the common ground. I think that is something we will still, even in the future, teach our computers or our AIs to do, because this is something we are as humans super good at, and computers and AI will lack up until a point that computing power and energy is so cheap that and chips are so powerful that they ultimately in 100 years they will exceed us. But for the coming years, I think being able to link all those things is really a human skill, and I think that is exactly why autonomous driving is so complicated, because we are already there. But what now is happening? I mean, Tesla, they just had their investor day. They already have the data which showcases that when you put autopilot on, the accidents per, so the miles driven before you are in an accident is a factor 6. So you are 6 times less likely to be in an accident when you have your autonomous software on. And now the question becomes, okay, how are we able to make it a 10x? And what you will see is that learning curve is exponential in complexity. So the last 1 or 2x of those 10x is super complicated, because that is what they call the corner cases. So you have like your whole, let's say, feasible set of outcomes, and your AI will find 90 to 95% of all cases and will act perfectly, better than you could ever imagine. But in those 5% or less, it will behave so strange. You think, how can you be so stupid? And in other cases be so smart. And that is being able to link some data points together, which we already do unconsciously. And being able to know all those links, what we have unconsciously, and try to grasp that, define it, and then collect all the data enough to teach it an algorithm, I think is far ahead in the future. And so fully autonomous driving, where you can say the like 99.999% is super far ahead, but we all have to remember that right now it at a level of 95% is already 6 times better. So you can, of course, we are in that sense all perfectionists. We all want to have the 100%, but you need to be aware that we as humans, when driving a car, are functioning at a 60% level. So don't overestimate yourself and be grateful for the things that you have. But was more of a maybe an anecdote or a story to maybe make it concrete why I think that critical thinking and being able to link things that maybe don't look like they have any connection with each other.
Yeah, and I also really understand the flip side of why you would say that knowledge and crystallized knowledge and repetition are becoming less valuable because of something like ChatGPT. I think you nailed that.
Great, yeah. I mean, you know that I feel like I want to end on this compliment, right?
Yeah, well, I don't think there's any reason why not.
Okay, so then, thank you all for listening. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. Sorry for not being as consistent as we were in the beginning, but Tom and I have a feeling of bringing it back and show you what we got. So
amen to that.
Amen to that. So thanks for tuning in, and hopefully we will see you next week.
See you.
Ciao, ciao.